Peki arkadaşlar başlıyoruz.
So why should an answer
Hello everyone, I am Melisa. I work in the marketing team as a marketing executive at AdColony. Today I have a very special guest with me, Duncan from the GlobalWebIndex'in team. Here I really want to mention about that they're a team that we really enjoy working with, and they always support us when we need any help, anything else immediately. So I really want to thank you guys for your immediate actions.
Thanks.
So today we are going to talk about what is Global Web Index panel, which data and countries that the panel includes, how is the data collection methodology, the importance of mobile gaming industry and mobile gamers in global and especially in Turkey, and the reports and market snapshots published on Global Web Index. So we hope it will be a useful and instructive video for those who will watch. So Duncan, can you please introduce yourself to our audience first, and then we can start.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me, Melissa. Likewise, it's great to work with you. So as you've already said, my name's Duncan. I'm the account manager for Global Web Index, managing a lot of our ad tech, music and publisher accounts. And essentially I help clients make sure they use our data effectively and to really reach their objectives and understand their kind of target audience as well as they can.
Actually, first of all, I would like to start with basic questions about the panel, Duncan. So, what is Global Web Index, and how are different parties like brands, advertisers, regular users or companies use the tool? And actually, I really wonder, what can you say about the available countries, maybe the featured ones? And lastly, what is the methodology for collecting the data?
Yeah, sure. So Global Web Index is a market research company, and we're the largest syndicated multi-market study in the world. So what that means is we have a survey that we give to consumers in 46 different markets across all the 5 regions, and we repeat that quarterly. And what syndicated means is that the methodology is the same for all of the markets. And what that means is when we upload that to our platform, our clients can then make these really compelling and interesting insights and comparative insights across different markets. And so what we try to understand is the internet user and their day-to-day life, everything about it. And we survey around 750,000 people a year, which is representative of about 2.5 billion internet users around the world. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of scope to kind of play around depending on what your needs are. So as you said, different agencies and companies are coming to us, and sometimes they're looking for inspiration about their target audience. Maybe they don't know enough about them. Maybe they're looking for validation and really understanding some of the misconceptions and some of the correct stereotypes about an audience. Or, they're looking to track their audience or measure a certain campaign. So there's a lot of different nuanced ways, I think, that you can use us. And it just really depends on what your objectives are and how you want to use that data in a particular market.
Yeah, exactly. So after learning all this information about the panel and all the details, I would like to examine the mobile gaming industry and mobile gamers a little bit based on the data we can obtain from the panel. So I know that as someone who uses Global Web Index actively, we can access a very comprehensive demographic, behavioral and preference data, and as you mentioned, very detailed data from purchasing behaviors to maybe device preferences. So we got really detailed information and insights about our target audience, and of course the people who we really want to research. So this means that there is an incredible variety data in the panel. I want to listen from you in the light of the data that we can get from the Global Web Index. What can you say about the mobile gaming industry and mobile gamers, both in global and also in Turkey?
Yeah, sure. So as you say, there's a lot you can do with it, but I really wanted to explore mobile gaming, I guess, talking to you guys, and put together some visuals just to quickly go over how you can really go from having a very holistic view on a global level to then really go into underlying sentiments and character traits and values that bring a lot of color to an audience and actually kind of go at the underlying motivations behind a particular behavior. So as you can see, like with this slide, for example, over the last 5 years, different regions have had different level of mobile gaming. So in 2015, Latin America was at the top, and now in 2020 is actually third, quite a distance behind mobile gamers in APAC. And you can see that even in the last year, trajectories have been very different. So in North America, for example, we've seen a really large uptick after a couple of years of actually a slow decline. And it just goes to show, you know, the mobile gaming industry is valued to be $250 billion by 2025. But really, to understand this on a regional level is really important to understand that there's been different increases and decreases over the last 5 to 10 years. But then you can obviously go to a lot greater detail on our platform. And I think one of the ways you can do that is just by looking across all 46 markets. And you can see on this slide that there's been quite a large increase in certain markets. So in India, Singapore, Poland, the US and Spain since 2018 have actually seen pretty large increases from around, you know, anywhere between 15 and 22% increase. And then you can also see these patterns between countries in APAC, like the Philippines and Indonesia, being at the top there, whereas countries in Europe tending to be towards the bottom. And you can also spot some key market differences between like Turkey, for example, which is actually fifth, and the UK, which is bottom 7th or 8th. So yeah, just really interesting to see how these different markets compare and also how they've increased or decreased over time. And there's actually only been 2 or 3 decreases since 2018 in Vietnam, Egypt, and a slight decrease in Japan. And then going a little bit deeper into that, looking at European markets, we can actually use this data to overcome some stereotypes. And I think one of the ones that's been most prevalent over the last 10 years have been that males actually are more likely to game than females. But we can see, especially in Europe and in other regions too, that that's generally not the case. There's actually only, out of the 17 markets we survey in Europe, there's only 3 that have a significantly more proportion of males to females, and that's in Turkey, Switzerland and Romania, although it's actually quite a slight difference, whereas in places like Denmark, Ireland and Sweden, the ratio is actually skewed a lot more to females. And we can see with the line chart here that the average age actually differs quite a lot by market, and it's actually lowest in Turkey at around 33. So it's just some interesting data to kind of overcome these maybe stereotypes or beliefs that you might have about a certain market or a certain audience. And then once you have this underlying demographic information and you start to understand this on a demographic level, I think it's really interesting to start looking at how people describe themselves. And so this is actually new data from our recently released Q2 survey. And we're switching over to some countries in the Middle East, like Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, South Africa. And the way to read this graph is essentially if it's outside of this orange circle, which is the average, then they're more likely to describe themselves as that trait. And if it's inside the circle, then they're less likely. And so you can see some quite interesting patterns emerge. I included the UK here to show how their shape is actually very different compared to the average. where you look at like South Africa and UAE, who are much more likely as mobile gamers to describe themselves as affluent. And then Turkey has an interesting shape as well. You can look at some of the traits that they over-index for, and you look at confidence, creativeness, and then also being fashion, health conscious, and money driven and price conscious. And that is, once you come to grips with that, it has a much more resonance when you start to pair it with the values that they have. So once we actually look at all 46 countries in a row, mobile gamers in Turkey are the most likely to say that being successful is important to them, but also most likely to say that contributing to their community is important to them. And then they're the second most likely to say helping the environment is a key value, and they really want brands to be eco-friendly. And then lastly, obviously they take care of their appearance, because they say that is a value they really like to see, but second most likely to say they feel overworked. And so you can just start to pair these demographic and value traits with their certain characteristics, and that really creates a colorful picture about why they're purchasing certain things or why they're interacting with a brand in a certain way.
Exactly. So you are right. Actually, we have different regions, different sales team, and also in the Istanbul office we have different teams who are responsible for like different industries or different regions. So actually, we really need to get different data about mobile gamers in different countries. So through the Global Web Index, actually, we can get a lot of insights, a lot of data about mobile gamers, actually who are them, their demographic features, their characteristics, their behaviors, preferences, like you mentioned, and everything. So these are very, very beneficial for us to reach the correct target audience with the correct advertisement format, so we can serve our advertisements in the correct environment to the correct target audience. So this is really important for us, and the Global Web Index is really beneficial tool for us to examine all these data and share with our sales teams and also clients and agencies. So after we examined the data scope of the panel and learned about what kind of data actually we can reach, I know that there are also different reports and market snapshots in the panel. So would you like to share some insights from some of the recent reports, please?
Yeah, so we release a lot of different types of reports. I think one of the ones that I quite like, quite pertinent to what we're talking about now, is one that we released on gaming personas. It's just a really nice demonstration of how you can kind of segment gamers as a whole audience, which is now huge, and really create these audiences in a bit more detail. So they have to either do certain activities or play on certain devices, and you can find really interesting stuff. So I won't go too much into this because there's a lot of kind of data on this page, but for instance, like gaming influencers are 2 to 3 times more likely to be interested in vegan food, for example. But there's also other ones that we do on more relevant or upcoming topics. So we do a flagship report on social media every year that's just come out, as well as ones on virtual events and interactions, obviously with everything happening post-lockdown. And, looking at these really up-to-date topics like TikTok and seeing how that user base in practically every region and every country has just blown up, and it's not just all hype. Being able to confirm that with data that's just come out, I think is quite powerful, rather than just relying on what you necessarily think or believe about a certain situation.
Exactly. So, and also I know that Global Web Index panel has the report section. So last week, as you know, we published our Gen Z report based on the data we got from the panel. So for our viewers who want to review it, we will add its link to the description part of the video, so you can reach the report and download it easily. So we know that there are seasonal trends in research too. So can you let us know more about Gen Z data available in the panel and also the most recent research?
Yeah, so Gen Z is obviously, hot on everyone's lips. Everyone's talking about them. But I think now we're kind of seeing Gen Z become a bit more of a distinctive group compared to millennials in terms of the traits that they exhibit and their preferences. So I actually stole this from a recent blog, but this slide is showing how Gen Z is actually, even though they're more native than millennials, they aren't as likely to favor experiences and that millennials are really well known for. It's kind of their cliche, right? But they're actually one of the most likely to say they want to own a product or service. And I think it's a really interesting thing with Gen Z that just because they're digitally native doesn't mean they don't value things in the real and that tactile experience. And so when we think about the transition of retail from, purely physical to digital, we're definitely going to see more of a hybrid between the two to really get through to Gen Z and to make sure that they're happy with the brand experience. And then there's other things about Gen Z as well that we can kind of confirm the fact that they really like buying from local independent retailers, and they're more than happy to pay for an eco-friendly product. And so even though they're actually more frugal relatively in their spending, they're actually, more willing to pay and go for that extra mile for things that are local or things that help the environment. And so when you combine those two things together, you can really start to explain why we see some upticks in certain items that they're purchasing, definitely more for their house, as you'd expect, as well as a lot of like smart speakers and smart products. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff about what they're purchasing, how they feel about their finances and the economy, and how they sort of differ in the way they feel about brands and what brands need to offer them compared to millennials and older generations.
Do you plan any new research in the near future?
Yes, there should be. In all the research, we try and separate out by generations, and those kind of generations are default audiences on the platform, so you can kind of explore those yourself as well. But in all the reports, we have that generational breakdown. So definitely check it out.
So, Duncan, thank you very much for all the information you shared today and accepting to be our guest. Really, I think it was a very useful session for those who will watch the video. So for those who will watch, please don't forget to like the video if you liked it, of course. Leave your questions in the comment section if you have any, so that we can get back to you. And subscribe to our channel. The same content is available also on Spotify and iTunes podcast channels. So we will be glad if you can follow them as well. So see you in our other videos. Thank you so much for watching again, and thank you, Duncan.
Thanks so much. Thanks. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.